Hey fams. My name is Ariana Hale. I am 27 years old and this morning I decided to disappear in plain sight. Before I pull you into the lobby where it starts, do one thing for me. Sit back. Take a breath. Grab a drink or a snack. This story moves fast and it rewards anyone who pays attention to the small things. If you love revenge with brains behind it, hit subscribe and tap like so the next twist finds you first. And drop your city in the comments. I want to see where you are listening from while I mop the floor of my father's company and watch sharks swim by in polished shoes. The marble lobby is white with soft gray veins that look like smoke trapped under glass. It holds reflections the way a lake holds a sky. You can tell who thinks they are important by how hard their walk lands on this floor. Executives click, clients glide, assistants rush, and cleaners move like shadows that remember not to get in the way. I am one of those shadows. Uniform the color of wet cardboard. Shoes that squeak when the floor is too honest. Hair in a messy bun that says no one is looking. Oversized glasses. No makeup. The version of me people forget a second after they pass. My mop leaves a wet line that turns from shimmer to dull as it dries. I pull the yellow caution sign along with me like a loyal dog. People step around it without seeing it. They step around me too. That is fine. Invisible is the point. Invisible gives me time to listen. The front desk receptionist glows for clients and dims for everyone else. I do not blame her. She's paid to glow in one direction and guard the rest. A pair of investors steps through the revolving door and she blossoms. Good morning, welcome. The same woman snapped at a courier 15 minutes ago for not ringing the bell with the special kind of patience she requires. I caught the courier's eye and handed him a paper cup of water because the elevator ate his floor button twice and the building is stingy with air conditioning before 9. He thanked me like I had saved him. A delivery cart rattles by. A security guard nods without looking up from his phone. A woman in a navy dress tries to photograph her reflection while pretending she is checking her messages. The fountain in the corner throws up a polite arc of water that pretends we are not downtown breathing a stew of car fumes and ambition. I push the mop across a square of light and the smell of lemon hits my nose. I've been here 2 weeks. Long enough to know which executives greet the barista by name and which ones toss their cups in the planter. Long enough to learn the morning cadence and where sound travels when people think no one can hear. Long enough to see who treats a cleaner like a person and who treats a cleaner like a moving sign. 2 weeks ago this started in my father's office with a view that makes the city look like a board he can pick up and tilt. He set a mug on a coaster and watched me while the steam made a ghost over it. He is a patient man when he wants to be and a fast one when patience is a waste. He spoke without drama. You want to run this company someday? First learn how people here treat someone they think cannot do anything for them. I smiled like he had told a joke with a moral at the end. You want me to shadow HR? Or legal? Or ride the elevator with you for a month and nod at the right floors? He shook his head. Lower. How low? Cleaner. The word hung there simple and heavy. I pictured my shoes on this marble and my hands on a mop and a supervisor with a clipboard and a time clock that does not care about my last name. I pictured faces I know pretending I am furniture. I pictured my own face without its usual armor of hair and clothes and tone. How long? I asked. 90 days, he said. No one knows but me and legal. Not even the board. Keep your head down. You watch. You learn. Then you tell me what I cannot see from up here. I studied him. He was not setting a trap. He was handing me a key I would have to carry in my mouth. I said yes. I said it quickly so I did not have time to ask for a softer path. That night I stood in my bathroom with my hair wet and pinned it up in a knot that looked like I had done it while walking. I tried on the uniform for the first time. Made my shoulders round. I put on old sneakers that flattened my posture. I looked at my face without mascara and it looked younger and more tired at the same time. I took out my contacts and slid on the oversized glasses I use for reading. I watched the way my eyes lost their sharpness from a distance. I practiced the small smile you give when you do not want attention. I said the name I would use. Ana Morales. I said it again with a softer R. I kept saying it until it felt like a coat I could wear without tugging the sleeves. I did not tell anyone. That part was easy. Privacy is air in my family. I did not do it because I want applause. I did it because I want to know with no filter who I can trust when trust is not worth anything but itself. That is my private reason. There is another one I do not say aloud. Maybe I want to find one person here who will see me before they see a last name. Maybe I want to see if there is a man in this building who is kind when he does not have to be. I am not shopping for a husband with a mop in my hands. I am listening for a voice that does not turn mean when no one is taking notes. Back in the lobby, a spill appears as if conjured. A paper cup sweats a ring onto marble and a trail of sweet coffee runs toward a seam. I am there before it finds the grout. I move the sign. I work the mop in a slow figure 8. A sharp voice arrives before the perfume. I need that dry in 90 seconds. We have interviews on this floor and I will not have anyone slip on your mess. Miss Clark. HR manager with a smile that looks borrowed. Suit the color of expensive ink. Hair in a sleek bob that dares a flyaway to try her. She carries a tablet the way a general carries a map. I look at the coffee and then at the empty cup on the table. It will be dry in 60, I say. She acts like I am a wall that spoke. Good. And keep your sign out of wide shots. We are shooting Glassdoor content for our careers page. Mop Girl in the background is not the brand. Mop Girl. I set the sign 2 steps closer to me and return to the figure 8. She watches me the way a cat watches a fish tank. Do you have clearance for the executive corridor? She asks as if I am trying to sneak into a gala in this uniform. I go where the work order says, I answer. She taps her tablet twice. Use the service elevator only. I do not want you in guest lifts. It sends the wrong message. What message is that? I ask. I'm curious. That we tolerate clutter, she says. That we do not separate front of house from back of house. We do. That is the message. I look at the shine spreading as the floor dries. It is already separate, I say softly. You just do not see where the line is. Her eyes narrow. She files that away to take out later if she needs to prove a point. She glides off toward the glass doors with a smile that lights up like a storefront when someone important approaches. I watch her angle change. One face for me. One for them. Only the mouth is the same. In the break room, the coffee machine wheezes like an old man. The fridge holds yogurt, ambition, and 3 lunches in containers that belong to people who write their names in thick marker and still get stolen from. Tyler leans on the counter with his sleeves rolled and a watch face that flashes at every turn of his wrist. He is a junior exec with a tall haircut and short patience. He holds court for 2 others who nod like he has gravity. He looks at me as if I am background. Careful there, hazard cone with a pulse, he says. We can't afford a lawsuit because you turned the lobby into an ice rink. I keep loading the bin with empty cups. I can sprinkle salt if you are afraid of winter, I say. I do not look up. My voice is mild. His friends choke on half a laugh and then stop, unsure who they are supposed to clap for. Tyler smirks. Cute, he says. You should put it on your resume under aspirations. Or just under mop. He walks out before I can reply, and that is fine. Men like him treat rooms like mirrors that work only for them. I do not need to see myself reflected there. Near the elevators, a man kneels to gather papers that the air conditioning tossed into a fan of white. He reaches for a runaway page and it skates under the bench. I slide the mop under and coax the page back like a fish. He smiles without performance and takes it with a quiet thanks. Daniel, right? I say because I have heard his name in the cafeteria and seen it on reports in the printer tray. Mid-level analyst. Numbers guy. Good posture when he forgets he is not supposed to have any. He blinks. Have we met? I shake my head. I read labels. And reports when people leave them lying around. You dropped this one 3 times last week on the way to the elevators. He laughs. It is a surprise sound. Warm. I should staple more. You should breathe before you walk with both hands full, I suggest. It looks like you are trying to wrestle the day into a shape it refuses to hold. He holds my eyes for half a second like he was not expecting a voice to come with the uniform. Then he glances down the hall as if someone will grade him for lingering. He lowers his voice to a private register. Thank you, he says. For the paper. And the advice. Anytime, I say. I hook a stray page from under the bench with my mop and he takes it with a grin that reaches one side of his face faster than the other. It is a good grin. It is also a careful one. He straightens when footsteps approach. His smile resets into neutral. He puts the papers into a stack and winds the elastic around them in a tight loop. I will see you around, he says. The last 2 words are too light. They mean I cannot be seen seeing you. Then he is gone. That is how it goes here. Kindness that checks the corners before it comes out. Courage that thinks about the cameras. Over the next days I learn the rhythm of Daniel's mornings. He buys oatmeal and adds cinnamon. He deletes the raisins. He writes numbers on a legal pad because his brain believes pencils more than screens. He holds the door for the person behind him even when they are 6 steps back. He says hello to the lobby guard. He keeps his volume low when he talks to interns. He looks at me when we are alone. He looks past me when we are not. I am not building a case against him. I am building a map. Where do the good lines run? Where do they break? Who chooses the harder thing when it is easy to choose the soft one? During a lull, the barista tells me her swan milk art got called a duck by someone who never tips. I ask her to make me the duck and I tip her with the cash in my pocket. She beams like I handed her a raise. A mailroom clerk with a neat part in his hair and careful shoes asks me if the executive bathrooms are really nicer or if that is a myth. I say they have better soap and the mirrors sit there like judges. He laughs. He tells me he sends half his paycheck home to a mother who sews dresses and a sister starting school. He does not say it for pity or points. He says it because he is living it. Miss Clark snaps her fingers once at me in a hallway to call me over without using my name. When I look at her hand she drops it like it burned her. You missed a scuff at the boardroom threshold, she says. It shows in photos. I kneel and rub until the edge disappears. There, I say. She looks down. Stand when you talk to me, she says as if my height offends her. Later I will think about how often she likes people below her eye level and how much that rules her choices. Tyler tells a joke at the end of the day that confuses itself for a compliment. It is nice to see someone work with their hands, he says loud enough for the hallway. Inspiration for the rest of us. He is holding a bag from a store that sells clothes to people who want to be noticed by other people who buy from the same store. He takes the service elevator because it is closer to his parking space and he does not want to walk around the lobby like a regular person. He thinks this makes him a rebel. It makes him lazy. On my lunch break I sit on a loading dock with a sandwich and watch the backs of the building breathe. You can learn a company from its front doors. You can learn its soul from the back ones. Out here the smokers share lighters and the drivers trade weather reports like currency. 2 cleaners teach me how to swap a mop head in 15 seconds. One of them, Rosa, has worked here 6 years and can spot a spill before it happens. She tells me which manager checks the trash for receipts after hours to see who bought wine on a company card. She tells me which vice president leaves encouraging notes on desks when a team stays late and which one sends emails at 2 a.m. and schedules them for 8 so no one knows he cannot sleep. I keep a small notebook in my pocket where I log the quiet things. Who holds a door? Who never does? Who says please when they ask me to pick up a spill? Who says mop that? Who thanks the security guard for checking a badge? Who slides past with eyes that accuse the guard of slowing down their life? By the end of week 2 my shoulders have memorized the weight of a bucket and my ears have a library of voices. I find empty conference rooms and hear the echo of what was just said to a room that thought it was alone. People talk to glass like it swallows sound. It does not. Glass is a drum. One afternoon I am polishing the brass strip on the floor where the elevator doors meet. Daniel steps in with a stack of binders and a phone pressed to his shoulder. He is saying yes, that model can work if we stop lying to ourselves about the inputs. He does not see me until the elevator opens. The CFO steps out. Daniel's voice drops into a safe register. He agrees to something he will undo after the call. He steps aside, sees me bent there with the cloth and gives me that quick small smile. The CFO does not see me at all. I have to move my hand or his shoe will find it. He talks as he walks. His words smell like coffee and strategy and a budget that hides short corners. The first real slice of cruelty I feel on my skin arrives on a Tuesday. Miss Clark is giving a tour to 3 candidates. She speaks in a tone that is 2 notes higher than the one she uses when she is not selling. She shows them the lobby art, the glass meeting rooms, the lounge with the good snacks. He calls it culture while staring at the wall. I come around the corner with the mop and the sign. The path to the executive corridor narrows. She does not pause. She looks at me like I am a sofa that rolled into the hall on its own. Keep to the back, she says, then to them, we keep our service operations invisible so client experience is never interrupted. I step into an alcove of shadow and wait. One of the candidates makes eye contact with me and gives an apologetic smile like he is embarrassed for her. The other 2 pretend I am drywall. Miss Clark uses the word family twice in the next minute. She says it like a password. Later, in the break room, Tyler has an audience. He is balancing a pen on the edge of a cup and pretending fate put it there. The pen rolls off. He says it means the quarter will be rough. His friends laugh. He glances at me and jerks his chin at the trash can. Make yourself useful, he says. The bin is full. I look at the bin. It is 1/3 full. I tie the bag anyway and replace it with a clean liner. He watches my hands and smirks at the efficiency. He mistakes competence for servility. Men like him often do until a different room shows them the bill. Near closing time, a mess finds me in the executive corridor. A coffee explodes out of its lid and does a slow slide toward a rug that cost more than my first car. I move fast. I set the sign. I pull the mop. I blot. I work the line until it turns from dark to pale to gone. I am on my knees when shoes stop near my left shoulder and a paper towel appears in my field of view like a flag of truce. Daniel. He crouches, hands me the towel without the performance of a good deed. He starts scooping the stray ice. He speaks softly so the hallway does not hear. You moved fast, he says. You saved that rug. I am trying to keep this place from drowning itself, I say. It spills lies and sugar in equal measure. He laughs and then bites it off, glancing down the corridor. People talk too freely here, he says. Glass walls make them think they are alone. Glass is a drum, I say. He looks at me, startled at the metaphor, like I have done a magic trick with a sentence. He is about to say something else when footsteps approach and his body edits itself again. He stands. He steps back. He says thanks like a stranger and is gone. During a fire drill the next day, I watch who takes the stairs with kindness. Miss Clark shouts instructions from the landing and scolds a woman for carrying her heels. Tyler pretends the drill is for other people and tries to keep working until the safety officer stands over his desk and waits. Daniel helps a new hire understand the difference between the first alarm and the second one that means take the stairs now. He smiles at me on the stairwell and it reaches both sides of his face. He holds the door because my hands are full of sign and mop. He does not look around first. It is a small, clean thing. I let myself enjoy it. Then I put it away. At night I sit at my kitchen table with a cheap notebook and the softer light and write down the day. I am not keeping score. I am keeping names straight. Patterns. I write little portraits in 2 lines. Miss Clark. Smiles at glass, snaps at people. Tyler. Jokes like a child but breaks things like a man. Daniel. Looks up when no one is watching, looks away when someone is. I could be wrong about them. That is why I keep writing. The way to know is to watch longer. My father calls once a week. He asks about the building the way a general asks about weather and supply lines. I tell him the coffee tastes like optimism until 11 and despair after 4. I tell him the cleaners know when a team is going to fail a deadline based on the trash volume at midnight. I tell him the mailroom clerk knows who will get promoted before HR does because the packages shift like seasons. He laughs once. Then he says good. Then he says keep going. On a Thursday just before lunch, I watch a woman in a red blazer march across the lobby in shoes that seem to cut the air. She drops her card holder, bends, misses 2 cards that slide under a bench and swears under her breath with no audience. I tilt the mop head, rescue the cards and hand them to her. She looks up and really sees me. Thank you, she says with her full attention. You saved me a call to the bank. It happens, I say. Not to me, she says. Then she smiles in a way that softens her face and says, apparently it does now. You have good hands. I am a professional, I say. She grins. Me too. She does not ask my name. She does not ask where my supervisor is. She just walks away with a nod. Not all power is cruel. Some of it simply has a job to do and does it without making a meal of other people. By the end of week 2 I have a list in my head of the people I would keep and the people I would move. It is not final. It breathes. It will not be presented to anyone yet. I am still learning the building and its ghosts. I am still learning the ways people try to be good and the moments they choose to be small. Late Friday the lobby calms. Meetings have turned into happy hours. The fountain keeps its polite arc. I polish the brass or pretend to because it gives me an excuse to stand where sound comes to me in pieces. Miss Clark is on a call near the glass stairs speaking in a tone that sounds like she is selling empathy in bulk. Tyler is telling a story in the break room about how he closed something no one asked him to open. Daniel is alone at a console in a quiet corner, looking at a spreadsheet with his hands on his temples. The security guard hums. The receptionist pretends to file and actually scrolls a picture feed of dogs in costumes. I move the sign. I make the floor shine. A woman with a baby on her hip steps in from the rain and asks if there is a restroom. I point her to the family one near the conference center and hold the door for her because hands and babies are never enough when you need them to be. She thanks me and looks like someone who handles 1,000 small kindnesses every day with no witness. At closing time, Miss Clark walks by and says without looking, "You left streaks on the east corridor yesterday. I do not want to see that again." "I did not leave streaks," I say. The light moved. She pauses. She turns. "Excuse me." The sun shifts and the streaks appear and then vanish. It is the glass playing tricks. If you want them to stop appearing, close the blinds at 3. She files that away with my earlier sentence about lines. She has a folder in her head with my name on it. That is fine. I have one with hers. Tyler passes with a box under his arm and a smile like a reflection. "Night mop girl," he says. "Night expense report," I say without looking up. He laughs because he thinks I am joking. He's wrong. As I head to the service elevator, Daniel steps out of one and stops. He looks like someone who forgot which floor he lives on. He hesitates and then speaks. "I have a dumb question," he says. "I am excellent with dumb questions," I say. "Do you ever get used to people not seeing you?" I tilt my head. "Do you?" He shifts his weight. "Sometimes I like it when no one looks. It gives me room to think. And sometimes it is a way to hide," I say. He nods. He runs a hand through his hair like he is ashamed of asking. Then he says almost to himself, "I should have said thank you yesterday. I mean properly. You helped me with that spill. You saved me 10 minutes I did not have." "You said it," I say. Quietly. "It counts." He smiles with relief. Then a voice calls his name from the corridor and he lifts his head like a dog hearing the leash jingle. He gives me a small salute with the folder. Then he is gone again. I ride the service elevator down with my cart and watch the numbers drop. I smell lemons and soap and the complex scent of a building that tries to pretend it is not alive. In the loading bay I prop the door with my foot and feel the air roll in. Tastes like rain and something burnt. I think about the first 2 weeks and what they have shown me. Here is what I know. Here is what I know. People will tell you who they are when they think you are nobody. Kindness shows up in small hands. Cruelty likes an audience. Hypocrisy loves glass. Power is not evil by itself. It is only a light that shows what you already are when you stand under it. Here is what I do not know yet. Whether Daniel's small kindness can stand when a crowd wants him to sit. Whether Miss Clark is a storm or a habit. Whether Tyler's jokes are a symptom or a disease. Whether the people who say family will still say it when the floor moves under them. I lock the closet. I clock out. I walk home with my uniform folded in my bag and my hair still in its messy knot so the city does not stop me to ask for photographs of a life I do not live at this hour. At my kitchen table I write 3 rules to carry into week 3. Be early. Be invisible. Be everywhere. Then I add a 4th. Do not assume. Watch longer. I sleep hard. Dreams slide past like trains. In the morning I wake before the alarm and lie there in the gray light and think of the marble that will hold my reflection for a few seconds and then wipe it clean. I think of my father and his voice without sugar. I think of my own name and the one I answer to at work. I think of a lobby that does not see me coming and a building that will teach me what it is made of. I tie my hair. I leave my face bare. I put on the glasses and the shoes that squeak. I lift the caution sign. I push the mop. And I step back into the lobby where being nobody is the only way to learn everything. Late morning, the building pulsed with coffee and deadlines. I was in the break room with my cart tucked by the fridge, emptying the small trash can that always fills itself faster than common sense. The espresso machine hissed. Someone's leftover fish re-announced itself from the microwave. I was half bent, tugging the bag loose, when Tyler breezed in with his 2 shadows, sleeves rolled, tie loosened, grin already waiting for an audience. Daniel followed 30 seconds later, attention split between a stack of printed models and the phone in his hand. He looked tired in a way numbers make you tired, eyes a shade duller, posture angled forward like he was still leaning into a spreadsheet. Kept my head down. I didn't need to see them to hear them. "Yo," Tyler said, bumping the counter with his hip. 2 meetings, 1 miracle and an espresso. In that order. His friends did their part and laughed. He clocked me, then dropped his voice just enough to pretend he wasn't making a show of it. "Careful, Dan. The mop girl's staring at you, man." I wasn't. I was staring at a trash liner that always fights back on the last inch. But the line hung there like a hook. Daniel could have let it die. He could have said she has a name or grow up, or nothing at all. Instead he let out a short laugh that wasn't his best self and said the sentence that sealed the day. Please, I have standards. It was light. It was throwaway. It was also a match. The room chuckled. Someone slapped him on the shoulder as if he'd scored a clever point off a weak opponent. Daniel kept his eyes on his coffee. For a brief second, only one, his gaze flicked toward me and then away, like a man who knows he's stepped in something and hopes no one saw where his shoes have been. I tied the bag, lifted it smoothly and said nothing. The simplest power I had was to refuse to give them a scene they could laugh about later. Tyler wasn't done. Hey, bin's full again, he said, pointing at the empty metal cylinder I had just lined, because some people like the sound of their own instruction more than the fact of the work being done. I've got it, I said. Come, flat. Daniel shifted like he might say something better than didn't. He took his coffee and left first. The door side shut behind him. Tyler stayed long enough to add, careful not to scratch the stainless. The CO likes things shiny. He didn't know the CO's daughter was holding the lip of the can, steadying it with 2 fingers. I let the silence come back. I finished the room. I wheeled my cart into the hall with the same measured pace I always used. And then I made myself a promise. I would not forget that one sentence. Not because it broke my heart. It didn't. Clarified my work. By noon the lobby had shifted into its lunchtime rhythm. Delivery bags in and out, meetings breaking, a tour of recruits trying to walk in unison behind Miss Clark as if moving together could impress the building. The fountain threw up its polite arc. The marble looked like a sheet of ice under a museum light. I was working the slot along the main path, sign in place, mop in hand, when the world decided to turn mean and clumsy all at once. A vase lived on the credenza near the central column. It was tall, hand-blown glass so thin the edges sang if you brushed them. Someone always parked it too close to the corner because it looked dramatic there. It also looked like an accident waiting for an email chain. Tyler came through with a garment bag slung over his shoulder like a trophy. He cut the corner too tight while checking his phone and his bag clipped the vase. It wobbled, made that high not yet sound Crystal makes, and then tipped. I was already moving. I set the mop against the wall and lunged, hands out, body memory from 1,000 near misses. But the base hit the edge and the vase shattered into a perfect chorus. Heads snapped. Conversations broke. Water and flowers slid across marble like someone had sketched chaos in pencil. Careful. Miss Clark's voice shot across the lobby from nowhere, and then she was there, gaze skipping past Tyler like he was a light fixture and landing on me. What on earth are you doing? She didn't wait for an answer. Why is your sign here instead of there? She pointed at a spot 3 feet to the left. I glanced at Tyler. He was frozen 2 steps back from the scene, mouth slightly open, phone still in his hand, already arranging his face into the expression of a witness, not a cause. I'll clean it, I said, already kneeling, already scanning for the biggest shards. Don't touch the glass, Miss Clark snapped. Security. The guard jogged over. What happened? Negligence, Miss Clark said without even tasting the word. She knows better than to leave wet floors near decor. And of all days, she gestured vaguely at the lobby, at the recruits, at the day itself. It wasn't, I began, then stopped. I was not going to win this argument in a lobby with Tyler pretending to be gravity. The guard looked up at the camera on the pillar. We'll pull the footage, he said. Camera 3 has a good angle. Camera 3 is down, Miss Clark said, quick as a reflex. IT sent the notice this morning. I watched her while I dabbed water away from the edge of the rug. There hadn't been a notice. I would have heard Rosa complaining about it all morning. But this wasn't about truth. It was about momentum. He had it. I didn't, yet. Come with me, she said, already turning toward the elevator. To the guard, please rope this off. I don't need a lawsuit on top of a broken antique. Tyler found his voice at last, low, sympathetic, just for Ms. Clark. Some people don't understand standards, he said. He brushed a drop of water off his sleeve like it had tried to stain him. In HR the air smelled like carpet cleaner and printed policy. Miss Clark sat me opposite her desk and arranged her tablet like a mirror. We have rules, Anna, she said, rolling my alias around her mouth as if tasting cheaper wine. And we have brand. Wet floors by the main path are not brand. The sign was up, I said. The vase was too close to the edge. And the corner. She raised a hand. Stop. I don't want excuses. We have recruits walking through. We have executives escorting clients. We cannot have this mess front and center. She filled out an incident report while she spoke. Her fingers were efficient. This will go on your file. We'll deduct the remainder of your shift and the overtime from last week to cover the property loss. Consider yourself fortunate we aren't seeking replacement cost. The camera, I tried again, is down, she said, not looking up. And even if it weren't, the lobby is your responsibility when you're on it. That's why you have the sign. Do you want me to put the sign on the vase next time? I asked, and I couldn't help it. The line arrived and I let it out. She looked up. There was the smallest flicker of annoyance. A simple, I'm sorry, would show me you understand what you did. I looked at the form, words making a version of the day that would sit in a folder and pretend to be truth. I thought of my father's voice. Learn how people here treat someone they think can't do anything for them. I swallowed. I breathed once. Then I said quietly, I'm sorry. The words tasted like a coin. Not shame. Not surrender. Currency. Sign here, she said. I signed. She slid me a copy in a thin blue folder with the company logo and the word people on the tab. I wondered how many other apologies lived inside drawers like this one, stacked and forgotten, proof of nothing except who held the pen. When she dismissed me, she did it with a smile polished for glass. Let's try not to make any more headlines today, okay? The Betrayal work belongs to the teams closing the quarter. I nodded. Of course. Back in the lobby, the glass was already gone. The rope line was down. The credenza was bare as if the vase had never existed. Tyler had evaporated too. Ms. Clark's tour had resumed, her voice warm and bright, telling the recruits about a culture that valued humility and grit. The receptionist gave me a look as I passed, half pity, half relief that she wasn't the one in the blue folder today. The security guard met my eyes and lifted a shoulder an inch. It was the closest he could get to saying, I saw. I didn't need him to. I had just seen everything I needed. I finished my shift. I finished it quietly, the way a drummer keeps tempo while the rest of the band trips over a chorus. I wiped the brass, emptied bins, straightened a chair someone left turned wrong. I let my face return to its soft setting. I didn't waste a breath on Daniel when I saw him in the hall, head down, mouth a careful line. I didn't waste a glance on Tyler when his laugh bounced off the glass like a rubber ball. I clocked out 5 minutes late so it wouldn't look like I'd run. I took the service elevator down. I walked home with my hair still in a knot and my hands smelling faintly of lemon and apology. At my door, the building's quiet was the first real kindness of the day. I dropped my bag on the chair. I set the blue folder on the table. Then I went to the bathroom and stared at the woman in the mirror, all edges dulled by the disguise, and took her apart. The glasses came off. The hair came down. The face came back. I made tea and forgot to drink it. I sat at my kitchen table and opened my laptop. The sleek one no one at work had seen, the one that knew my fingerprints. The login screen gave way to a clean desktop. Nothing but a folder I had created the night I said yes to my father. It was empty. I renamed it, Housekeeping. Inside I made subfolders. Security. Lobby. Break room. Elevators. Names. Not because I planned to build a case in one night, but because files need homes so you can find them when the day arrives. I opened a new note and typed today's date. Then I wrote the first sentence without decoration. Tyler knocked the vase with his garment bag at 12:06. Miss Clark declared the camera down. Incident logged as my negligence. Deduction threatened. Daniel laughed when Tyler said I was staring. Please, I have standards. I stopped. I read the line once. It didn't sting. It steadied. I pulled my phone and scrolled. I had a few photos of setups from my morning checks, a habit I had begun to time my routes. They weren't art. They were proof. The vase sat too close to the edge in all of them. I dragged those images into lobby/vase. I added timestamps. I opened a new document called People. I wrote their names and the smallest things that defined them when no one was watching. Not verdicts. Traits. Miss Clark. Snap for attention, smile for glass, downplay evidence, control narrative. Tyler. Jokes as dominance, lazy corners, performance first. Daniel. Kind alone, careful in public, compromise under pressure. I saved. I made a spreadsheet. Columns for date, time, place, event, witness, artifact. I wasn't building a conspiracy wall. I was building a log. In a company, logs are how truth survives memory. Then I reached for the blue folder. I scanned the HR incident report. It had the language of policy, not the language of the day. I dropped a flatbed scan into HR/write-ups. I typed the file name with the same calm I had used in Ms. Clark's office. The act of saving it felt like taking a fingerprint. My phone buzzed. A text from Rosa. You okay? Heard about the vase. Camera's fine all morning. Then, don't reply. Just nod at me tomorrow. I smiled. I put the phone down. In the quiet, the day replayed in my head, but this time I watched it like a camera does. Steady, unbothered, wide. I could see the path from a joke to a file deduction. I could see how a laugh in a break room gave permission to a woman in a suit to erase a camera. I closed the laptop for a moment and walked to the window. The city glowed in its separate boxes. People ate and fought and scrolled and stared. Everyone certain their own folder was the only one open. I came back to the table and reopened the laptop. Then I did the thing that turned today from a bad day into the beginning of an answer. I started a new note called Methods. Under it I wrote, Recordings. State laws allow one-party consent for recording conversations in common areas. Verify. Photos. Catalog setups, exits, signage placement, traffic patterns. Schedules. Track who is where when incidents happen. IT notices. Request public maintenance memos. Archive local copies. Allies. Identify staff who see everything but aren't asked. Security, reception, mailroom, cleaners. AV. Map camera angles in lobby, elevators, corridors. HR. Learn the form numbers. Note who signs off. I stared at the list until it stopped looking like a burden and started looking like a blueprint. My phone lay face down on the table like a coin I was done spending. I flipped it over and scrolled to a single contact. I didn't call my father often with this voice, the one that says, I know what I'm doing. We usually kept calls wide and warm. But tonight wasn't about warmth. He answered on the second ring. Ariana. I could hear the leather of his chair and the way the word shaped itself. I didn't tell him a story. I asked a question. When's the next board meeting? He didn't ask why. He didn't say, what happened? He let a breath pass. I imagined him glancing at the calendar he keeps in his head. 3 weeks from today, he said. Quarter close. Why? I could have told him the long version. Tyler's bag. Miss Clark's folder. A sentence in a break room. I didn't. Not yet. Because by then, I said, I'll have something you need to see. Because by then, I said, I'll have something you need to see. Silence on the line, then a small, amused exhale that sounded like approval and warning both. Don't set yourself on fire to light up a room, he said. I won't, I said. I'm just going to flip a few switches. He chuckled once. Good night, Ariana. Good night. I hung up. I looked at the clock. I opened housekeeping again and added a new folder. Board. Then I opened my notes, pressed the mic icon and said in a level voice, Day 14. The part where they told me I don't belong. Start there. I let the recording run as I spoke everything I remembered. Exact words, exact tones, the quiet parts that cameras never catch. When I finished, I saved it as audio/day 14. I went to the sink and finally drank the cold tea because I needed something to mark the end of the day. Then I set my phone to do not disturb, braided my hair and lay down. Sleep didn't come all at once. Plans fizz and crackle before they cool. I stared at the ceiling and pictured the lobby as a diagram. The credenza, the camera dot, the path of a swung garment bag. I pictured the break room, the angle of a head when it turns cruel. I pictured the boardroom, quiet now, waiting the way a stage waits in the dark. When sleep finally took me, it wasn't with the clench of anger. It was with the clean hum of work beginning. In the morning I would be Anna again. Glasses not uniform. Mop and sign. The same floor. The same people. Only one thing would be different. I wasn't collecting moments anymore. I was collecting proof. Before we go inside, do what you do for me each time. Sit back. Breathe. Grab something to sip. If you love a story where patience loads the trap, hit subscribe, tap like and tell me where you are watching from. I read them. I picture your cities while I mop the marble and listen to the building tell on itself. The week began like a soft bell. Nothing loud. Just a tone you can follow if you stand still long enough to hear it. I kept my uniform plain. Messy bun that looks like I missed a bus. Oversized glasses. Shoes that squeak honest sounds. The cart rolled in front of me like a shield that said, "Do not look here." People obeyed. That was fine. The less they saw, the more I learned. Invisibility makes hallways longer. It makes doors open without knocking. It makes glass behave like air. I drifted where sound collected. Near the espresso machine. Along the corridor outside legal. By the copy room when the big printer coughed out budgets someone forgot to pick up. I cleaned the same shelf twice while two vice presidents compared notes on how to bury a bad quarter under confetti words. I polished a chrome trash ring while a manager explained that a client dinner at a steakhouse counted as a strategic offsite if you typed it carefully. I wiped down a whiteboard left with 3 numbers that did not fit together. One of the numbers was hope. The other 2 were lies. The lobby was my stage. The real show lived in the small rooms. I became a piece of furniture that heard everything. A conference door would open. Laughter spilled. A line escaped ahead of its owner. "We will charge it to community outreach." No one reads that line item. Put the contractor's nephew on a short-term project. He will think it is a promotion and stop asking questions. Run it through Q3. By the time audit swings around, we will have a different logo on the slide. I did not pretend to understand every scheme. I wrote enough to look it up later. I trusted patterns more than speeches. Some days the gossip was ugly without being illegal. It was the kind that grows in the absence of consequence. I heard 3 senior staff compare a new hire to a piece of office decor. I heard a director comment on a woman's dress in a tone meant only for men. I heard one joke that made me stop moving and watch the speaker's face to see if he understood himself. He did. He smiled anyway. I kept my hands busy while my ears worked. The body covers the heart with motion when the head needs quiet. I collected cups. I wiped shelves. I fixed a crooked frame that had been slightly wrong for weeks. I let the building forget me. Invisibility is not just listening. It is also choosing who to see. The receptionist who glowed in one direction and dimmed in another had been eating lunch at her desk for 5 straight days. On day 6 I left a small brown bag beside her keyboard while she was on a call. Turkey sandwich. An apple. A note that said "drink water" in Rosie's block letters, because Rosie has good instincts and she cares about people who glow for others. The receptionist looked around, confused, then smiled when she saw Rosie walking by with a mop. He gave her a thumbs up. Rosie winked and said, "You are welcome." I nodded at both of them and moved on. On Wednesday a cleaner named Luis texted me that his bus had stalled. He would be 20 minutes late. Miss Clark had already warned the crew that no one was allowed to swap assignments without her say-so. I did not swap. I just took my cart down his hallway and started without asking. When he jogged in, out of breath, the worst of it was already done. He tried to thank me. I told him to drink water and hit the back stairwell because Miss Clark liked to inspect the main one first. He laughed. He exhaled. He said, "What do you see up there that I do not?" I said, "Eyes." He said, "Keep them open." I was not only collecting cruelty. I was collecting kindness with names attached. You cannot clean a house by throwing out everyone who lives in it. You decide who gets a better room. By Friday my notebooks had more weight. Housekeeping was no longer a metaphor. It was a file cabinet. Dates and times. Names and lines. Photos of setups no one will remember until they need to. Screenshots of memos that vanished from the server the next day. A map of cameras that worked. A map of cameras that did not. Maintenance logs that did not match the day Miss Clark said camera 3 was down. I gathered these the way a good cook gathers ingredients with tomorrow's meal in mind. Daniel became a small puzzle with a rhythm I could track. He was kind in empty corridors and cautious in full ones. He held doors. He spoke in low registers that offered dignity to the people who had less of it. He also changed colors when the wind in a room shifted. I was not keeping score. I was measuring consistency. It was near 9 on a Tuesday when he jogged up to me in the hallway, breath thin, tie loose. He had a folder under his arm and panic in his eyes. "Did you see a red thumb drive in the copy room?" he asked. I had it on the counter while I ran 2 sets and now it is gone. I could have said no because I did not owe him rescue. I did not. I looked at his face and saw the weight of a week that had not been good to him. I said, "Follow me." We retraced his route. The drive was not on the counter. Not under the paper stack. Not on the floor. I checked the rim of the bin and then the bottom lip of the copier where dust lives. Nothing. Who else was in here? I asked. Just me, he said and then froze. And Tyler for 30 seconds to ask if I finished something that he never started. We stepped into the hall. Tyler's laugh floated back from the corner like a cheap ringtone. I walked toward it at a steady pace. Daniel followed. Tyler stood at the break room counter with his watch facing outward like a sponsor. He held a tiny red drive between his fingers and flipped it like a coin. Lose something, champ? He asked. Found it by the copier. You are welcome. Daniel reached for it. Tyler lifted it out of reach with a grin for his audience. Be careful with your toys, he said. You would not want a cleaner to step on it. I could have spoken. I could have cut the scene with a sentence that would land like a knife. I did not. I did something smaller. I bumped the trash can with my hip so it rolled one foot toward Tyler's ankle. He stepped back to avoid it out of reflex. His wrist dropped. Daniel plucked the drive. Thank you, he said, and the thank you had the same tone he used when he talked to interns after hours. Tyler glared at me like furniture had misbehaved. Then he smiled at his audience and said see you at drinks as if he had not just lost a small fight. In the hall, Daniel whispered thank you again, this time to me. He looked as if he wanted to say more. He did not. He pressed his lips together and went to file what he had saved. It was a small thing. It did not erase a sentence in a break room from last week. It just set a pin in a map. Later that day he tried too hard to be kind. He fetched a second bin liner without being asked. He held the elevator a full 5 seconds while I pushed the cart through. He said the coffee machine ate my dollar earlier. Can I get one for you? I did not punish him for trying. I did not reward it either. Too little too late is still almost. I let him find his own balance. Around me the building kept talking. On Thursday I stood near the legal corridor with a rag in my hand while a senior assistant read an expense report to another and tried not to laugh. The first entry said team morale lunch. The total was 4 digits. The restaurant was not one anyone took a team to. The second entry said community giving sponsorship. The memo line said bottle service. The assistant shook her head. She said I am not getting fired for processing this. The other said do it. He is on the list to be promoted next quarter. She filed it. He did not want to. He did it anyway. At a late afternoon check of the 6th floor I walked past finance while 2 voices debated how to classify a vendor who happened to share a last name with the director. The answer did not follow policy. It followed gravity. In the small kitchenette on 4, a rising manager slid his hand toward a junior associate's wrist and said the sentence every HR manual thinks it can prevent. She stepped back. She said I am good thanks. He laughed. He said relax. It is networking. She left her mug behind and walked out. He finished it for her. I wiped the counter when he was gone and left a note in my file with his name and the time and the camera that points exactly at that counter. I was not a cop. I was not a judge. I was a woman with a mop, a memory and a deadline. The board meeting sat 3 weeks out like a stage light that had not yet been turned on. Everything I did leaned toward that light. The company planned a splashy new initiative announcement for the same week. The word they chose was fresh and it was painted on every internal slide. The deck lived on a shared drive that lots of people could see but few could edit. I was not supposed to touch it. I did anyway, carefully with a duplicate that had a name only I would notice at a glance. I pulled a clean copy onto a USB that fit in the coin pocket of my wallet. I built a second copy on my laptop at home. I made a third that lived in a cloud folder that ignored office passwords. Then I made a fourth that I put on a tiny card with a yellow sticker. Redundancy is not drama. It is sleep. The deck itself was classic. Opening slide with a glossy city photo and a tagline that had been written by someone who collects taglines. A section on values that repeated itself with better fonts. 3 charts that predicted a future that looked like a well-behaved arrow. Thank you slide that said questions but meant applause. I slid 4 files into that flow where only I would look. Not at the front. Not at the end. In the middle where attention dips and people stop guarding the click. File 1 was a table of employee reimbursements coded as community giving, matched to dates and restaurants, matched to department heads who had signed off. File 2 was a short clip of a director explaining to a peer that he could push a questionable vendor through if they used the right label. File 3 was a transcript of a memo that had lived on the server for 6 hours before someone replaced it with a version that used softer verbs. File 4 was a photo of the broken vase with a timestamp and a log of the camera maintenance that proved nothing was down at noon. None of these were enough by themselves to start a fire. Together, in sequence, they looked like smoke where the building said the kitchen was cold. I did not plan to spring the trap during the initiative meeting. That would have looked like grandstanding. I planned to let the file live on USB sticks that the AV team would use for that day and then keep for the board because no one ever rebuilds a deck when they can duplicate it and change 3 titles. I spoke to the AV lead, Kevin, the way a nice person speaks to a nice person who is underpaid and overasked. I told him I could help package the files so the transitions did not jerk. I told him I would label everything cleanly so he did not have to hunt. He said, "You are a gift." He meant it. He did not ask why a cleaner was good at this. He liked that I was good at this and that I made his day smoother. While I worked, the montage kept playing. 2 executives cutting corners, thinking the door was shut. A manager misusing the company card with the confidence of a man who believed policy was for other people. A vice president making a comment he would deny in a heartbeat if you put a recorder in his hand. I recorded him without putting anything in his hand. One-party consent is a quiet blessing when used for defense. I checked the law twice. I played fair with the rules that mattered and let the rest sit in my notebook with dates and names. In the middle of all this, I made sure to feed the parts of the building that were still human. I kept the receptionist stocked with water and small fruit. I did not leave notes every time. She started smiling at other cleaners with her full face instead of just her mouth. A mailroom clerk who sends half his paycheck home found 2 extra hands one morning when he needed to move 20 boxes and none of the people who had ordered what was inside would help. I carried 2 at a time and set them exactly where the labels said. He said, "You do not have to." I said, "I know." He said thank you and meant the larger thing. Daniel kept hovering at the edge of better behavior. He saw me in the lobby and said hey with the same tone he uses for the guard and the new hire. He rested a folder on my cart one afternoon while he tied his shoe and said without looking up, "I was out of line last week." I said, "Which part?" He said, "All of it." It was the closest thing to an apology I would get, and maybe the only kind he knew how to give in a hallway where someone could turn a corner and take a picture out of context. I nodded. He nodded. We let that be enough for the day. What he did not know and what no one knew yet was that I had already moved the center of gravity. The deck was live on Kevin's laptop in a folder that he trusted because I built it with his labels and mine hid inside them like seeds inside a soft fruit. The lobby cameras were mapped. The break room microphone on my phone had learned the rhythm of lunch. The IT memos that would one day deny something had already been saved in a place that did not delete quietly. The small, sharp exchanges kept sharpening. I was coming out of the service corridor with the cart when Miss Clark appeared with her tour of candidates again. She wore a navy suit that could stop a rumor. She saw me and smiled the smile she saves for glass. "Don't be late tomorrow, mop girl. Big meeting." She said it like she was handing out tickets to a show and then remembered I was not invited. I smiled back and pushed the cart slow and easy. Oh, I would not miss it for the world. It landed. Not as a threat. As a promise. She did not hear it as either. She heard it as compliance. She turned to her candidates and said something about values with a voice like a bell. They nodded. They liked the sound. Bells do not mind what ears they ring for. That night at home I rehearsed the clicks. The deck opened cleanly. The title slide appeared on time. The value slides marched. The 4 files did not show as slides. They were links hidden under phrases that looked like any other placeholder. But when you pressed the arrow twice, the file played. You would not find them if you never tried to keep time with the presenter. You would not miss them if you did. I saved it again. I made sure the backups were where I needed them to be. I put the tiny card with the yellow sticker back into its pocket and pressed the leather flat with my thumb. The board was a week away. The initiative meeting was tomorrow. I was not going to detonate anything yet. I was going to slide wires where carpet covers them and let the room walk. Morning open like a camera shutter. I arrived early enough to watch the building wake. Lights flicked on one wing at a time. Keycards beeped sleepy greetings. The fountain cleared its throat. I set the lobby then walked a loop. AV tested cables. Kevin gave me a nod that said we are set. I checked the front row where the names would sit on place cards. I stood behind the last row to see which sight lines were bad. I fixed one chair that rocked. If you're going to pull the chair, you first make sure it is the only one that moves. At 10 people filed in. executives in smooth suits, managers in their best blazers, a handful of junior staff invited to clap. I took my place along the side wall with the other invisible people. I was the only one in a uniform who knew the file better than the person on the stage. The CEO took the mic. He was not my father. He was the public face. He thanked the team. He clicked the deck. It began to march. He spoke the language people expect to hear at these things. He said the word vision 3 times. He said the phrase lean in once. The room nodded at the right beats. I watched hands on phones, eyes on slides, the muscle memory of an audience pretending this is new. Then right where our test said it would, the deck gave a half-beat stutter. The cursor blinked as if thinking. The CEO glanced at the screen and clicked again. The first hidden file woke for a breath, then went back to sleep because Kevin had the reflexes of a man who has been told his job is to avoid surprises. No one else saw it. I did. That was enough. The wiring worked. During the Q&A, Miss Clark raised her hand and asked a question that sounded like an answer. It was the kind of theater companies write for themselves. The room laughed in the safe way it has learned. I kept my face at rest. Daniel asked a question that revealed he had actually read the brief. The CEO thanked him. Tyler nodded as if he had thought of the same question earlier and forgot to ask it. The receptionist, who had finally eaten a lunch that was not a vending machine meal, clapped with the rest. Everything looked normal. That is the point of a mask. Lets the truth nestle right under the skin and wait. After the meeting, I helped Kevin wrap cables and coil tape. He told me I saved him an hour by organizing his folders last night. I told him he saved me a headache by not letting the screen hiccup in public. He laughed and said my heart stopped for a second. I said mine did not. He grinned. He asked if I did AV in a past life. I said something like that. He shook his head and said you are wasted on this job. I said not for long. The rest of the day moved like water. I made a show of cleaning the boardroom the way I always did. I wiped down the console. I straightened the chairs. I left 3 fresh markers with caps that clicked. I set a small bottle of hand sanitizer by the place where the chair for the public CEO always goes. He likes to use it before he shakes hands. It is a tic. People trust a man who smells faintly of citrus and control. In the hall, Miss Clark passed me again with the swing of someone who just had a good meeting. He glanced at my sign, then at me. Do not forget. 8 sharp tomorrow. The lobby needs to look like glass. It will, I said. Use the service elevator, she added, because telling me the rule is one of her rules. I always do, I said. She nodded. He did not see me. She saw the idea of me and was satisfied it had answered correctly. Daniel came by later, standing half in, half out of the break room door like a man not sure if he was allowed to be where he was. He held out a paper cup. Coffee, he said. The machine owed me one. I figured I would pay the debt forward. I took it. Thank you. He shifted, uncomfortable with a kindness that might be witnessed. I know I have not been great, he said. I am working on that. Good, I said. It looks better on you. He opened his mouth as if to ask a question he did not have the right to ask. Then he closed it and said, See you, Anna. He said my alias well. The R was soft. He had been listening. By the time the building started to empty, I had walked the path I needed to walk 3 times. The hidden files nestled inside the deck like patient animals. The USB in Kevin's kit matched the one in my wallet. The cloud copy sat where lightning could not touch it. The camera map lived as lines and dots behind my eyelids. I do not want to make this sound like a heist. It was a cleaning. I removed the dirt people pretend not to see. I placed what remained where the light would find it. I made the path smooth so the truth could travel without tripping. Night settled. I rode the service elevator down beside Rosa, who asked me if I sleep well with all the noise I keep in my head. I told her some nights yes. Some nights not yet. She said try lavender on your pillow. I said I would. We stood in silence until the door opened. She clapped my shoulder. It was the kind of touch that says keep going. At home I laid the uniform on the chair and let my hair down. I set my wallet on the table and pressed the pocket with the yellow sticker. Still there. I opened my laptop and clicked through the plan one more time. I was not giddy. I was not nervous. I was still. The phone buzzed. A calendar reminder written 2 weeks ago lit the screen. Board decks locked by Friday noon. I smiled. Mine was already locked. Just not in the way they meant. I washed my face and looked at myself in the mirror. I saw the cleaner I had been all day. I saw the daughter my father trained to listen. I saw a woman who had stopped needing to be seen to be sure she was real. I turned out the light. The city hummed. Somewhere downtown a door clicked shut in a boardroom and someone who likes to talk said see you tomorrow. I lay down and watched the plan play in my head like a quiet film that only I had tickets to. The credits did not roll. Not yet. Morning would come with Miss Clark's voice and Tyler's laugh and Daniel's careful yes. I would put on the uniform. I would keep my head down. I would be invisible. And I would be early because the thing about pulling a chair is simple. You have to be close enough to feel the weight shift. Before we walk into the room, do the usual with me. Sit back, breathe, grab something to sip. If stories where nobody walks onto the stage as the only person who's fully awake are your thing, hit subscribe, tap like, and tell me where you're listening from. I want a map of cities in my head while I watch an entire building learn the cost of not looking closely. The suit is navy, tailored like a sentence with no wasted words. The fabric holds its line even when doors breathe. The blouse is white, not bright. The way you underline something you intend to read out loud. Hair down, glossy, pinned behind one ear so it doesn't argue with the mic makeup that looks like light rather than war paint. Heels I can run in though I won't have to. When I look in the mirror I don't see the cleaner. I see my mother's cheekbones and my father's eyes and a stranger's calm. The car drops me 1 block away. Walking the last 100 steps gives me time to hear the building before it hears me. The revolving door exhales board meeting air. Espresso, toner, expensive cologne, nerves under aftershave. The lobby is already staged. Fresh flowers, distant, careful scent. Water carafes sweating into coasters. The fountain trying to pretend we're near a river. At the security desk, Marcus stands a little straighter than usual. He clocks the suit, the posture, the face. His nod is a full sentence. Morning, Ms. Hale. It's still Ariana, I say softly. Just the other version. He grins, eyes warm. Good hunting. I cross the marble that used to swallow me whole. The squeak of my shoes is gone. The echo is different when the building knows your name. Outside the boardroom, a cluster of assistants sort place cards and whisper about seating changes like diplomats about to redraw a border. Miss Clark moves among them with her tablet and a smile engineered for high-gloss surfaces. She calls out an instruction without looking up. Make sure the investors get line of sight to the screen. No pillars, she says. Then she turns, almost colliding with me. Her face processes the person in front of her. Suit, hair, heels, a woman she has never felt the need to memorize. She smiles the way people smile when they assume they're meeting a donor. Good morning, she says. We're not open to the public for the first segment, but if you're here for the later session. I tilt my head. I'm here for the first segment. Of course, she says, and her eyes flick to my badge. There isn't one. The flick becomes a longer look. Her smile holds because it's been trained to. Your name. Keep your pen inked, I tell her. You'll want it. I leave her with confusion disguised as courtesy. A few steps away, Tyler laughs at something on his phone and jerks his chin toward the door as if the room inside belongs to him by inheritance. He doesn't look up until the laughter around him dims by 1 watt. He follows the air's attention to me and the grin rearranges itself into the blank he saves for women he can't immediately categorize. Morning, he says, plastering on charm. You're early for the show. I had a hand in the lighting, I say. He smirks like he's agreed to a joke he didn't hear. The door opens. We go in. The boardroom is a cathedral of glass and oak. The table is an island the size of a studio apartment, polished to a polite shine. Microphones laid out like cutlery. Along the back wall, a second row of chairs for senior staff who aren't directors but pretend to be. Daniel sits there already, hands on a legal pad, eyes scanning a printout as if the right number on the page could be willed into a better number. When he looks up and sees me, his gaze does that split-second flicker I've watched for weeks. Recognition fighting with a rule he hasn't learned. He knows I'm someone. He doesn't know which someone yet. He swallows as if a word got stuck going down. Kevin from AV is a quarter ghost in the corner, headphones around his neck, laptop open to a folder we built together. His nod is small, professional, beautifully steady. Everything is exactly where it needs to be. At the head of the table, an empty chair waits with a small bottle of sanitizer beside it. The public CEO stands near the screen, conferring with a man from legal about whether a phrase should be future or present tense. My father stands by the window, hands folded loosely, looking out at a strip of sky only airports and boardrooms get to see. He turns slightly, catches my eye, and the corner of his mouth rises by a millimeter. Approval, not applause. The directors filter in. Shoes, ties, pearls, a pin that means someone's old money is wearing a new suit. A gavel taps, not because anyone needs to be ordered to sit down, but because ritual likes its prop. The public CEO begins the meeting with the smooth cadence people buy when they want their company to sound like certainty. Then my father steps forward. He doesn't need a mic. He lifts his hand and the room folds into listening. Before we begin, he says, "I'd like to introduce our newest board member." He lets the beat sit. Every ear in the room leans toward it. My daughter, Ariana Hale. Silence, then noise. Not voices, air. The kind of inhaling a room does when it has to change its mind in public. Miss Clark's face sheds color like a winter tree sheds leaves. Tyler slumps imperceptibly in his chair, a sinking you only see if you've learned to read chairs. Daniel's hand tightens on his pen. It makes a small creak, thin as a truth finally stretching. The public CO manages a clap that sounds like he rehearsed it. Others join. It's the kind of applause you give a new painting you don't yet understand. My father gestures to the chair at his right. I walk the length of the table and the building walks with me, remembering other mornings when I wheeled a cart instead of wearing a suit that cost as much as a week of everyone else's time. I sit. The sanitizer bottle looks up at me like an old joke. I smile small. My father turns toward the room. She spent the last 90 days in this building doing work most of you never see, he says. His voice is even. Proud, yes, but not sentimental. She asked for that. I agreed. Today you'll hear why. He looks to me and steps back. He doesn't give me a script. He gives me the room. I stand. The mic wakes with the softest hum. When you've held a mop and a caution sign, a mic feels like a light tool. I'm Ariana, I say. You know the last name. You don't know the uniform. A flutter of confused smiles. My eyes go to the second row, to the seat where I used to be invisible with my sign leaning against my leg. For 3 months I cleaned your floors, I say. Emptied your bins. Wiped your glass. I used the service elevator. Kept my head down. I listened. I let that hang without heat. If a sentence is true enough, it warms itself. Today, I say, I'd like to share what I found. I look to Kevin. He clicks. The screen fills with the first slide. It isn't a vision statement. It's a photograph of the lobby at 5:58 a.m. Empty, beautiful, indifferent. A caption in white at the bottom. Front of house before you arrive. I'm not here to embarrass anyone, I say. I'm here to show you where the building you love is already cracking. Audio, not image. The room hears the breakroom's acoustics and doesn't recognize them at first. Spaces sound different through a mic. Then 3 voices become specific. Names aren't needed. The timbers are enough. Put it under community outreach. No one checks those line items. Soft, automatic discomfort slides around the table like a cold draft. I watch 2 directors' eyes move toward the controller, who sits forward in her chair, tight-lipped. The controller glances at the public CO at legal, then at me. She's not surprised, she's counting back through memos she'd flagged and been told to soften. A screenshot fills the screen. An expense report line reading team morale. Outreach sponsorship, the vendor a nightclub, the amount indecent. Approved by a name sitting 3 seats from my left. Time stamps. A second screenshot where the same manager emails an assistant to fix the labels so audit doesn't fuss. No narration needed. Numbers were their own faces. Miss Clark coughs into her fist, hoping to cover the small sound she makes when her stomach turns. Tyler laughs, a quick brittle sound as if to say wow, awkward, and then stops because no one else is laughing. Daniel's pen stops moving. Audio again. The voice is careless, the tone practiced. An executive to appear by the legal corridor. If you use a short-term services contract, procurement won't flag that name. Push it through month to month and it lives under noise. The next voice asks, "Isn't that you know?" The first voice laughs. "We're here to solve problems." A director frowns. The legal counsel sits forward, sober now. The public CO starts to speak, to contextualize, and stops. Context dies in the presence of good tape. A security cam still, time-stamped. The hallway to the garage where 2 senior employees exit at 2:41 p.m. on the dot 3 days in a row. Badges logged as active on site until 6. Below it, a snippet from their team's time sheets. The numbers don't rhyme with the picture. I'm careful here. People leave early, sometimes for good reasons. But patterns tell on you when they pile up. The camera angles are merciless in their arithmetic. I don't look at the men in the photo. I look at the eyes that flicker around the table, calculating. Is this sloppiness or theft? Is this a few hours or a habit? A board thinks in aggregates. I give them enough instances to feel weight. This time the text is ugly, not illegal. Messages from a senior to a junior at 10:47 p.m. Networking tomorrow. Wear the blue dress, winky face, her reply at 6:11 a.m. Please keep this to work hours. His at 6:12, relax. We're all family here. The director with a daughter my age goes stiff. The human resources manager, Ms. Clark, sits so straight her spine might crack. She is calculating how this will read if it reads publicly. She is wishing she had handled something small before it required a fire extinguisher. I keep breathing. I keep my tone low. These aren't anomalies, I say. They are a sample. Small by design. Representative by accident. Now the room hears a voice it does recognize. A voicemail, the kind people leave when whiskey lends them courage and a sense of invincibility. Tyler, 1:13 a.m. to a coworker, had to deal with that mop girl today. Clark wrote her up. I told her to make it sting. Maybe she'll quit. Cleaner problem solved. He laughs. Anyway, drinks tomorrow? Don't let me get you fired, winky face. The boardroom changes temperature. Heat in the wrong places, cold in others. The public CO looks at Tyler the way people look at a room that just got expensive. Tyler's smile shatters and tries to reassemble itself into innocence. He leans forward, palms up. Look, I was joking. Everyone jokes. And I didn't. She broke an antique vase. I raise a hand. Camera 3 wasn't down. The screen fills with a maintenance log. Dates. Times. Miss Clark's IT notice never existed. The technical director, who's been quietly watching from the wall, clears his throat. We didn't push a notice that day, he says. Camera 3 was operational. Miss Clark's mouth opens and closes. If there wasn't a notice, I must have misread or invented it, says a board member who rarely speaks in anything but checks. It's not loud. It's precise. She looks at the legal counsel. Legal is already writing something down. Gasps aren't dramatic in real life. They're small sounds people try to swallow. Murmurs aren't a chorus. They're paper moving, a pen falling, a chair stuttering when someone shifts too hard. I let all of it happen. It's not chaos. It's a room beginning to be honest. I don't list every sin. I don't name every name. I don't need to. The power here isn't in volume, it's in sequence. Wilder would say if you have a third act problem, you didn't set it up in the first. I set this up in the first 10 minutes of my first shift when I noticed who said please to a cleaner and who didn't. All I'm doing now is playing the tape. Why record this at all? A director asks, voice clipped, defensive, not for himself but for the idea of his company. Because the building already records all of us, I say. Cameras, logs, door badges, expense lines. I didn't invent a system. I paid attention to it. I let my eyes flick deliberately to the second row. Daniel is watching me with an expression that makes him look younger. Not the guilty boy in the break room. The kid who remembers what the right thing is and is surprised to find it still on the shelf. He swallows. That little creak again, this time it sounds like relief with splinters in it. We're not finished. A short audio clip from the break room, low, almost tender in how cruel it is in miniature. Tyler, the mop girl's staring at you, man. Daniel's voice. A laugh he wishes he could unsay. Please, I have standards. I don't look at him. I look at the second row as a unit. The audience inside the audience. This isn't here to humiliate anyone, I say. It's here because rot starts where laughter hides it. I listen to a lot of laughter. A director at the far end of the table raises a hand. Is this legal? He asks, which is his way of asking, is this admissible in the court of my comfort? One party consent, legal says evenly. In common areas, yes. Common decency, I add, is a different standard altogether. I don't smile when I say it. The joke would be easy. This isn't about easy. I turn a page in my notes. Not because I need to, but because it gives the room a second to catch up. Before we talk about punishments and headlines, I say, I'd like to talk about the people this company doesn't see when it says family. The screen changes. Photos, glossy yes but not marketing. The receptionist at 1:14 p.m., fielding 3 calls with a protein bar flattening under her elbow. The mailroom clerk lugging a box half his weight up a flight because the elevator's out and no one who ordered what's in it offered to help. Rosa adjusting a wobbling chair in the 6th floor conference room so the person who sits in it at 3 p.m. will think this company takes care of them. These people, I say, are your front line and your conscience. When you cut corners, they are the ones who tape them back down so your guest doesn't trip. I let the images sit. A few people in the second row don't breathe for a beat. Then I flip the temperature again. Here's what I'm not doing today, I say. I'm not calling for a public execution. I'm not making a sizzle reel out of human error. I'm doing what my job taught me to do. Clean. You don't scream at a stain. You remove it. You protect what's still worth keeping. I turn slightly so my words land as much on the directors as on the staff along the wall. I've prepared recommendations, I say. Clear, specific, and boring because policy should be boring. Boring means it works. I read them, not as a prosecutor but as a woman who knows where the mops live. Immediate audit of community outreach line items and a 90-day freeze on manager-approved entertainment expenses pending new controls. Independent review of procurement for short-term services contracts flagged by vendor relationships. All findings reported to the board, not routed through the departments they concern. HR restructuring. Complaint handling removed from any single person's discretion. All harassment claims to be logged in a system with board-level visibility and timestamps that cannot be edited. Security policy update. Camera maintenance notices posted in a centralized read-only feed. Individual managers cannot declare footage down. Training that isn't theater. Managers evaluated not on completion but on changes in team complaint volume and retention, with random spot checks by outside observers. And a recognition pool. Actual money, not pizza, for staff below the glass line who are named by 3 or more peers for practical kindness. I let the last one hang the longest. Money is the only apology some systems accept. And, I add softer, a promotion path from housekeeping and mailroom into operations and facilities management for those who already run this building in everything but title. The public CO clears his throat. This is ambitious, he says, which is how men like him pronounce the word inconvenient. We'll need to review resourcing. You'll need to review your appetite for risk, a board member says before I can. She's been quiet until now. Her voice is gravel and silk. I'd rather read about us for doing too much than for pretending none of this exists. My father hasn't spoken for 10 minutes. He speaks now. We will vote on these recommendations today, he says. No drama. Authority is often just a refusal to schedule truth for later. I could end there. The room is already half rebuilt, the foundation poured and curing. But revenge isn't just a list. It's a mirror. I take one last step into the part of the story that people will tell later in a sentence that begins with, "You won't believe what she said then." I started this 90 days ago because someone told me I didn't belong, I say. They were right. Not in the way they meant. No one belongs in a company that confuses arrogance with standards and cruelty with culture. I look at Tyler. Not long. Long enough for him to understand that this is attention without interest. Some of you will say you were joking. Some of you will blame the hour of the night or the weight of the quarter. I'm not interested in your reasons. I turn to Ms. Clark. Her face is composed again, the way a ship's captain's face is composed when she knows the hull has been breached and she intends to get the passengers off anyway. HR isn't a broom to sweep things under, I say. It's the floor we stand on when we ask people to tell us the truth. Then I let my eyes land on Daniel. He doesn't flinch. He doesn't try to signal me. He holds the gaze like he owes it. I don't care if you're kind when no one is watching, I say. I care if you're kind when everyone is. His nod is an inch deep and cost him something. Good. The currency today is not money. It's willingness. The public CO asks for questions. There aren't any worth hearing. There's a lot worth writing down. The directors look at one another in that way board members do when votes have already happened behind their faces. 5 minutes, my father says. Then we reconvene and vote. The room exhales. Chairs scrape. People stand in place to whisper into phones. Kevin unplugs nothing. He knows Act 2 is one coffee away. Miss Clark approaches me, tablet clutched like a shield. Up close she looks smaller. It's not the suit. It's the subtraction of certainty. Ariana, she begins, and the way my name sounds in her mouth is a small apology wrapped in syllables. About the camera. You thought I couldn't check, I say. You thought the story would harden before anyone asked to see the raw footage. She doesn't defend. She nods once, a professional who misjudged the weather and is ready to change the forecast. If I'm still in this role after lunch, she says, the first thing I'm doing is getting my team out of the complaint inbox and into the floors. Good, I say. Start with the 4th floor kitchenette. The counter by the sink. You'll find a bruise you've been calling personality for 2 years. Her eyes flick. He understands. She breathes out like someone who's been medicating a pain and just decided to see a surgeon. Tyler doesn't approach. He paces at the edge of the room, phone in hand, blowing up chats where he used to be charming, now sounding like a man trying to unspill water. He catches my eye once and does that universal gesture. Palms out, I'm a good guy, I swear. I look at his hands and think of the vase. He looks down first. Daniel steps forward. He doesn't offer an excuse. He doesn't pretend the break room never happened. He says simply, I'm sorry. I could make it cinematic, string him up with a one-liner and a soft smile. I don't. I say, be better when it's hardest. That's all that counts here. He nods like someone decided to remove a piece of glass from his shoe without painkillers. He goes back to his seat, sits straighter. 5 minutes becomes 7. People file back. My father doesn't gavel. He doesn't need to. He says, we'll vote now. Hands go up. One by one. No one wants to be the vote that leaks to the press as against closing the bar tap. It's nearly unanimous. There's one abstention from a man whose business card has 3 last names on it. He'll retire within the year. Motion carries, my father says. He looks at me not to share glory but to share the weight. We both feel it. We both stand anyway. The public CO clears his throat. On personnel matters, he begins. I hold up a hand. I don't need a guillotine, I say. I need a calendar. I read the short list I wrote at 2 in the morning when I was angriest and then rewrote at 8 when I was sane. Ms. Clark. Administrative leave pending independent review of HR practices. Recommendation to return in a redefined role if remediation is completed and board approves. Tyler. Termination for cause. HR to provide resources for outplacement because spite is not a policy. Executives in the after-hours footage. Restitution of hours falsely billed. Formal warning on record. Mentoring requirement with a leader who has never left at 2:41. Manager with the late-night texts. Suspension without pay. Immediate training. Team reassignment for the complainant with no career penalty. External investigation into past incidents. Raises and promotions for Rosa, Luis, and the mailroom clerk who runs logistics quietly while everyone else runs their mouths. I don't ask the board to vote on those. They're not board business. They're house business. But I say them into the mic so the room will carry them to the corners I can't reach alone. My father nods once. Make it so, he says to the public CO who realizes perhaps for the first time that he will be actually doing exactly that. Any final remarks? He asks, looking around like a man hoping for a procedural question instead of a story he'll have to tell his wife at dinner. Yes, I say. Just one. I pick up the small bottle of hand sanitizer beside my father's chair. Its citrus scent hops out like a joke I refused earlier. I set it down again precisely where it was. I came in here to clean, I say. I don't plan to stop. I look at the second row. At the staff who have watched their leaders learn how to be led. Daniel. At Kevin who will coil cables tonight knowing he kept a secret without knowing what it was. At Ms. Clark who might become the version of herself that her resume keeps proposing. At the receptionist who deserves lunch that isn't swallowed between good morning and one moment please. The boardroom is quiet in a way most rooms don't get to be. Not empty. Present. We're better than the jokes we tell when we're tired, I say. We're better than the shortcuts we brag about when we think no one's taking notes. You want a culture? Here it is. Do the boring right thing when no one's watching and the brave right thing when everyone is. I click the mic off. The hum dies. The sound it leaves behind is the building itself. People stand differently when the floor has been mopped. They step carefully at first, not wanting to leave a mark. Then they learn how to walk on a clean surface without fear. Afterward, out in the lobby, the marble holds a new kind of reflection. Not brighter. Truer. Reporters aren't here. This isn't that kind of day. The story will leak. They always do. But leaks aren't the point. Plumbing is. Miss Clark walks past me toward HR, spine set, eyes level. She will have a meeting. She will be asked questions she would have asked if she had been a different person 6 months ago. She might become that person. Or she won't. Either way, the form will have a new line under remediation plan where outcome used to be the only box. Tyler exits with a man from legal and a cardboard box. He doesn't make a scene. Men like him rarely do when the audience is large and the usher is the board. He looks smaller than he did in the break room. Not because of the suit. Because gravity finally found him. Daniel passes me and doesn't hesitate. He says low, "Thank you," and it isn't for saving a thumb drive or a chair. It's for dragging him into a room he can be proud to sit in. "Don't thank me," I say. "Make the next joke expensive." He nods. "Copy that." Kevin gives me a thumbs up from across the lobby. A signal only people who've worked with tape and screens understand. We did it clean. No glitches. He'll sleep tonight. I cross the floor slowly, heels precise as if the marble can tell when you mean your steps. At the revolving door, Marcus raises a brow. "Well, house is cleaner," I say. "Still dusty in corners. We'll get there." He chuckles. "Always another corner." I step into the street. The air is brighter than it was when I walked in. Not because the sun changed. Because I did. My phone hums with texts I won't answer yet. Friends sending links to chatter, my mother sending a heart, my father sending a period. He doesn't waste exclamation points. I walk 1 block without thinking. Then I stop and look back at the building. It looks the same from the outside. That's always how it is. The real work is internal. Face the lobby with a mop long enough and you learn that no one notices clean until they notice what clean allows. There will be fallout. There always is when you pull up carpet and show people the nails. Some will call it a stunt. Some will call it a purge. Some will call it what it is. Housekeeping. I have one more act to write. It's not about a boardroom. It's about the quiet work after the fire. The promotions, the apologies that come without microphones, the lunches eaten sitting down, the men who learn to be public about kindness and private about power. But that's later. Right now I'm 27, standing under a sky I didn't earn but intend to pay for. I adjust my sleeve. I exhale. And for the first time in months I let the silence be sweet. Take a breath with me. Get comfortable. If you've ridden this far, you already know how this ends. Not with fireworks but with floors so clean everyone sees their reflection. If you live for that kind of ending, hit subscribe, tap like, and tell me where you're watching from. I want to see the map light up while I finish the job. After the vote, the building felt different. Not louder. Clearer. Like someone opened a window in a room that had been breathing its own air too long. We moved quickly because delay spoils truth. I stood at the head of the long oak table and read the first names that deserved to rise. The receptionist, I said using her name, because titles are cold until you warm them with a person, is promoted to office manager, effective immediately. Pay adjusted to match the role. Authority to staff the front desk properly, and the right to take a lunch like a human being. She covered her mouth with both hands in the back row. The sound she made was small and bright. The room shifted, surprise first, then a quiet agreement that felt like approval admitting it had been late. Rosa and Luis, I continued, are being moved into facilities coordinator roles. Anyone who can predict a spill before it happens should be paid for foresight, not just for mops. 2 heads popped up near the door. Rosa laughed once and cried once, which is the exact right order for that kind of news. Worker protections, I said, and now the tone changed. Less announcement, more blueprint. Complaint handling moves into a ticketed system with board visibility. No more inboxes where bad news goes to suffocate. Cameras. Maintenance logs posted in a read-only feed. Expenses. Community giving lines audited out of the marketing fog and into daylight. Procurement. Short-term noise. Contracts get names and signatures or they don't get paid. You could feel the floor steady under those words. Policy isn't thrilling. It's what makes the stage hold while people perform on it. And then the part the rumor mill would carry before we even left the room. Miss Clark, I said, looking directly at her, not to humiliate but to leave no space for mishearing. You're invited to resign, effective immediately. She didn't flinch. She'd put herself together between sessions, and now she did what competent people do when the bill arrives. They pay it. She stood, straightened her jacket, and nodded once. A pilot who'd landed a damaged plane and was ready to speak to investigators. Understood, she said. She gathered her tablet with hands that didn't shake and walked out with a spine that for the first time looked honest. If she wants a future in the work, she'll do it somewhere she has to earn the room from zero. I don't hate her. I hate what she let the title do to her. Tyler, I said, and didn't have to say more. Security was already at the door, polite and present. He tried a smile he hadn't packed well enough. It was a joke, he said to the room, to me, to anyone who'd catch it. It was, everybody. Everybody didn't, I said. You did. He swallowed, looked around for a lifeline, found none, and went out as quickly as he'd come in. Box waiting somewhere with his name written by someone who spells clean with a capital C. The room exhaled. The public CO announced next steps in the careful voice of a man who has decided to be useful. Directors murmured to assistants about follow-ups that would actually happen. The second row, my row for 3 months, sat straighter. When I turned, Daniel was already moving. He didn't come at me with excuses. He didn't come at me with a speech. He stopped at arm's length, hands open, eyes unsteady for the first time since I'd met him without a mop in my hand. I didn't mean, he began. I saved us both, the long version. I gave him the truth in a small portion, the way medicine goes down best. Daniel, I said with a soft smile that wasn't cruel and wasn't kind, just accurate. You saw a cleaner. You could have seen a person. You made your choice. He closed his mouth. The hurt that crossed his face wasn't from me. It was the sting of a mirror. He nodded once, slow. I'll make better ones, he said. Good, I answered. Make them when it's inconvenient. He stepped back, not dismissed, redirected. There's space for people who learn. There's no time for people who won't. I gathered my notes, nothing theatrical, nothing left behind that could be reinterpreted. The boardroom emptied into a hush I liked. My father met my eye across the table and gave me exactly what I needed. Not praise, not advice. Permission to leave the place a little better than I found it and go get some air. I walked out to the lobby. The marble greeted me the way it always had, with that cool, indifferent glow. The difference wasn't the stone. It was the click of my heels. Same rhythm, new meaning. When I was nobody, the sound apologized for existing. Today it measured the distance from entrance to exit with complete sentences. People parted without quite realizing why. Some whispered, some looked away, some smiled like they'd just watched a magic trick and were deciding if they liked it more before or after I explained it. The receptionist, no, the new office manager, stood, then sat, then stood again, laughing at herself. I mimed a glass of water and she mimed back that she'd drink too. Rosa pressed a hand to her chest as if keeping her heart from running out into the street. Luis gave me a thumbs up so big it might have been a flag. I paused at the fountain. The arc of water looked the same as it had on my first day. That was right. Revenge doesn't repaint the lobby. It resets the rules for who gets to stand in it without flinching. Outside, the city was bright in a way that had nothing to do with weather. My phone buzzed and buzzed. My mother's heart emoji, my father's terminal period, his favorite full stop. A handful of directors with "good work" written like they just discovered the phrase. I put the phone on silent. The sweetest silence isn't the absence of noise. It's the absence of permission for the wrong voices. Here's what happened after the headlines in case you're wondering about the corners. The office manager implemented staggered coverage and real lunch breaks. The front desk didn't collapse. It worked better. Sure. The new version started logging complaints in a system with timestamps the board could see. The kitchen on 4 lost its bruise. The man who called late-night texts, networking, attended training and came back quieter. We'll see if the lesson sticks when the room is full and the jokes are cheap. Procurement stopped pretending that month to month was a magic trick instead of a loophole. Entertainment budgets shrank into something you could defend without wincing. And in facilities, 2 coordinators who'd spent years being invisible started scheduling maintenance before things broke. And people noticed because chairs stopped wobbling and doors stopped sticking. Funny how often culture looks like a door that opens when it's supposed to. As for Daniel, he did what he said. He corrected a peer in public once, Cleanly, no grandstanding, just a simple not cool, that broke the spell. I heard about it secondhand. That's how you want to hear about those things. He started leaving his door open after 5, not for show, but so interns would stop hovering in the hall. He sent me one message with exactly 4 words. I'm getting there. Thanks. I didn't reply. He didn't need me to. I didn't take a victory lap. I took a walk around every floor and touched every little place where the day could go wrong. A crooked picture frame, a frayed rug edge, a light buzzing in a way that makes patience thin. Revenge had done its job. Now housekeeping would keep it. People love to talk about power like it's fireworks. I like it better as a checklist. Did you pay people fairly? Did you protect the ones with the least armor? Did you fix the policy no one sees until it breaks? That's the hard work. That's the quiet work. That's the work I came here to do. By late afternoon, the building settled into its new muscle memory. I stood once more in the lobby, let the marble throw me a clear reflection, and said the last line out loud. Not to the room, not to my father, not to the board, but to myself and to you. Revenge isn't always loud. Sometimes it's just cleaning house, in front of the people who made the mess. If this story hit you, if you felt that click on the marble and the breath the room took when the truth finally stood up, tell me. Would you have done the same? Gone further? What's this stain you'd scrub if you had the mic for 5 minutes? Drop your take in the comments. Like the video if you believe kindness should be public and shortcuts should be expensive. And subscribe if you want more stories where the quiet one keeps receipts and the ending is a clean floor you can walk across without looking down. Now sit back, breathe, and listen. The next story is already knocking and I've got a mop in one hand and the lights in the other.